Welcome to Quiz 4, and we'll take a look at the answers for this quiz now. Our class has already covered a lot of materials. That's our first example sentence. So before we answer any questions, let's analyze the sentence. Okay, there are no shifters. Has is the X word. I move it here to the front to make my question. Has our class covered materials? And the subject is the words between these two X word places. Everything else to the end of the sentence, since we don't have any shifters, is the predicate, and we'll mark it with an arrow facing the subject. And let's look for our ties. Has ties with our class. Has ties with the present. Let's mark that. And has ties with covered. Now covered is the DTN form of the verb. Now also in week 4 we started to take a look at number 1, the M and the Y places. Now the M place is a place where we put words like already, not, sometimes, always, quickly, thoroughly, completely. And then everything left is Y, just like that. Now also we're prepared to name the kind of phrase that we find in Y. So to name a phrase, we have to look for the most important word, or what we've been calling the head. In a verb, or in a phrase that begins with a verb form like this, and since the Y is the covered ties with the X word, it's the DTN form, we know that this group of words is a verb phrase. And we also know, because it's the DTN form and we see that it's tied with an X word that's tied to the present, the time, that this is a verb phrase, no time. Now we're ready to take a look at our questions. Example number 1 contains a word in the M place. That's true. Example number 1 contains a 2-word subject, our class. That's true. Example number 1 contains 2 ties. Well, no, the X word ties with the subject, the X word ties with the time, and then the X word ties with the verb. That's 3 ties. So this is false. Example number 1 contains a verb phrase, no time, in the Y place. That's exactly true. Question number 5. Example 1 contains the past form. No, that's false. It's the DTN form. Now, a lot of people will confuse that and say, oh, this is the past form of the verb. It looks like the past form because covered is a regular verb, but we know from the ties that it can't be a past verb because past verbs tie with past time. Covered ties with the X word. That makes it a DTN form. The X word is has. Example number 1 is tied to the present. Absolutely correct. True. Question 7. Example number 1 does not contain a shifter. That's true. Okay, let's take a look at question 8. And again, if you do have any questions or comments about this, please post that on our discussion board this week. So, in our class, grammar describes language. In our class is the shifter. I don't see an X word. I see the verb is describes, so the X word is does. Does grammar describe language? Let's make it negative. Grammar does not describe language. And now we've found our subject place between the X words. Everything left is the predicate. And now let's look for, well, you know what, why don't we put the since we have room here. Now the M place is over here. If I had a word like always, I'd say grammar always describes language. That's the M place. Now let's look for our ties. Describes ties with grammar. If I said two grammars, then I'd say describe. And describe also ties with the present. So this, I can see, whoops, excuse me, yeah, this is the S form of the verb. Now we have the X, the M, the last place in the predicate is Y, and that's everything that's left. Now, describes language is the verb phrase we find in Y. I know it's a verb phrase because it's headed by the verb describes, and that would make it a verb phrase with time. I can see that the S form ties with the present. Let's take a look at our questions. Number 8. Example 2 contains one shifter. True. Example 2 contains two ties. True. Example 2 contains a three-word subject. False. Example 2 contains the S form of the verb. True. Example 2 contains a verb phrase with time in the Y. True. Example 2 contains three words in the predicate. False, just two. And example 2 contains a word in the M place. No, the M place is empty, so that's false. Okay, here we are, example number 3. His excuse was he did not have enough time. I don't see any shifters. The X word is was. I'd move it here to the beginning to make my question. Was his excuse he did not have enough time? That makes the subject his excuse, and everything left is the predicate. Now, let's put in the M again because we have the room still. We haven't started marking up yet. So I could say his excuse was not, oh, excuse, that doesn't make sense. Maybe we could say his excuse was just he did not have enough time, or his excuse was always he did not have a time, or his excuse was never he did not have enough time. The M word, that, now not doesn't fit in there. And maybe later we'll have a chance to talk about why not wouldn't make sense. He did not have enough time. But anyway, at this point we're good, so let's not get into that right now. So, was ties with the subject, and was ties with the present, with the past, sorry. Okay, and now let's name the phrase we have in Y. He did not have enough time. This to me looks like a sentence. It doesn't have any shifters, so a sentence that's just made of a subject and a predicate we've been calling a trunk. It's the smallest possible sentence. It just has a subject and a predicate. Okay, let's take a look at our questions. Example 3 contains a shifter. False. Example 3 contains a past form of the verb. False. There's no verb at all here. And example 3 contains 6 words in the predicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's false. Example 3 is an affirmative sentence. Now this is kind of tricky. The trunk, he did not have enough time, is negative. but the sentence is affirmative. His excuse was something. So this is an affirmative sentence. That's true. If it was negative, then we'd have not in the M place. 19. Example 3 contains a trunk in Y. Absolutely true. Okay, those were our sentences. And now I just wanted to ask a few questions to just make sure that we're comfortable identifying and naming phrases. So match the phrase in the Y and its name. So now in Y we have 3 very shiny rings. 3 very shiny rings is a noun phrase because rings is the head. We are walking down the stairs. So walking down the stairs is the phrase in Y. And walking down the stairs is headed by walking, and that makes it a verb phrase no time. It's the ing form. The bus is at the corner. At the corner is Y. At the corner, it's headed by the preposition at, is a prepositional phrase. The car ran out of gas. Ran out of gas is Y. And it's a verb phrase with time. That's the past form. The train was very crowded. Here, the head of the phrase is crowded, and crowded is an adjective. We know it's an adjective also because we can put a word like very in front of it, very crowded. So this is an adjective phrase. Okay, let's take a look. I just want to make sure that I answered all of these correctly. And how did I do? I got 20 out of 20. Perfect. Okay, so this is the answer key for quiz 4. If you have any problems or you're a little confused or you're not sure about something or you answered something wrong, make sure that you feel comfortable why it was wrong or why you should have answered a different way. Or if you have any questions, do a little review. We're coming into our last lesson group now. That's week 5. So we have to feel that all of this is comfortable, and then we're going to take a closer look at verb phrases and the Y place. That's going to be our next step. So I hope you're still enjoying this, and I hope that you're finding it interesting and useful. And again, please, if you have any questions or comments, post something on a discussion board and ask someone in the class, what do you think about this? Could you explain your point of view? Okay, next I'll see you when we begin lesson 7.